Hello everyone, it's Shane Kanto, your Wasteland reviewer, and I have a couple of guests for this solo A Star Wars Story review.
Go ahead.
Mike DeStefano.
Bobby DeStefano.
Bobby and Michael are two of my friends, and we all just went to go see Solo A Star Wars Story, directed by Ron Howard, starring Alden Ehrenreich as the new Han Solo, and this was a prequel film to set up the origins of Han Solo as a character in a Star Wars universe. So, I guess we could just get started talking about general thoughts about the film.
Definitely. So initial impressions are, we definitely learned a little bit more about Han Solo, who he was before he was introduced in Episode 4. In terms of the film as a whole, I think that there was a lot of fan service, so I think that people shouldn't take this at face value if you're just taking a look at Rotten Tomatoes. I think you should definitely form your own opinions, and I think as a Star Wars fan seeing it, you're going to give it a much different review than a film critic would in general.
Yeah, I would completely agree. I looked at Rotten Tomatoes, and the scores were kind of mediocre at best. I haven't checked recently. Do you know the most recent score, Shane?
I could bring it up as you're talking.
Okay.
Yeah, I would have to say that it's probably in the high 60s, maybe low 70s at this point, if I had to guess.
Yeah, but I would say it was definitely maybe a little better than that. I can't say it was it's going to blow your mind kind of movie, but I think overall it was worth seeing. So I wouldn't say don't get turned away by any scores on Rotten Tomatoes or Metacritic or anything that you might see.
As of right now, it has a 71% critic rating on Rotten Tomatoes, but a 54% audience rating.
Oh, wow, that's surprising.
So it looks like the Star Wars movies recently aren't doing so well with audiences when it comes to their scores, especially after The Last Jedi. But we won't get into that in this review. That's a whole other video. But my honest thoughts right off the bat was I thought this was a fun film. It really doesn't feel like something that's like this was needed and it was like super important, but I think it was, hey, people love the character of Han Solo. You get to learn like how he came about in this story of Star Wars, and it was just a fun swashbuckling kind of adventure, and you could definitely tell that this was influenced by the idea of what Indiana Jones is, and that's kind of what they were trying to go for, where it's like, here's an adventure, enjoy it. And that's basically how it felt.
Yeah, for sure. When I was leaving the theater, I would say that my initial description upon leaving the film was it didn't quite feel like a crux film, like in episode 6, 7, or 8. But what it kind of felt like was today in the adventures of Han Solo and Chewbacca type thing, and it really kind of felt like. Maybe you were picking up a one-off comic book at the comic shop and reading a story. There were definitely a lot of great reveals in terms of, how certain things came to be, how certain relationships were formed, and I think that a lot of fans are really going to enjoy that. And, for anyone who hasn't seen it yet, there are no spoilers here, but there are some big reveals in this that I think that true Star Wars fans will really love. And it'll leave you talking about after you've left the theater. So, again, I know we've been talking a lot about not letting the Rotten Tomatoes score scare you away, but really don't let it scare you away. This is really a Star Wars film that you should not miss.
And, in terms of, I can definitely tell this film's probably going to be more appreciated by Star Wars fans than general audiences, because it really does, it's like, it hits home to Star Wars fans, and it really plays at that. And if you're not a Star Wars fan, basically you're getting a fun, pretty light adventure. And I think that really reflects in Ron Howard, who directed this film, who in his career has done some very good films, but a lot of the time it's like he's a very reliable director to go in there and make a good film, and that's what he did. He went in there and he made a fun adventure. The action sequences I think are pretty exciting and fun. They do a nice job of the train chase that they have in the trailer and on the Millennium Falcon, and just basically the action was a lot of fun, and it was well shot and it was well done. And if any of you have ever watched any of my videos, I am very picky about that. So I think this did a good job with that, and I think Ron Howard did a nice job.
Absolutely. I would agree, Shane. I think that any Star Wars fan, this is a must-see.
I would agree. I mean, like I said before, it's not going to blow your mind, but I think it's going to be an essential piece to just kind of, getting to know Han a little bit more, and I'm sure they're going to, I would think, build off of this movie into many more, or a few more, and it'll help maybe close some gaps that may be between episodes 3 and Rogue One, or 3 and 4.
Yeah,
Yep.
so one of the biggest things that we were talking about, especially on the ride home, was the timing of this film. So, obviously, there are no spoilers in kind of trying to predict when this film took place, but, if you kind of think about, the age of Han Solo in this film, I think we kind of all came to the agreement that, give or take, this probably took place maybe around 10 years before A New Hope, if I had to guess. Shane, would you agree with that?
Yeah, it's somewhere in between, probably somewhere in between the middle of when Revenge of the Sith happened and then where Rogue One picked up leading into Episode 4. And not to get into any spoilers, I think it gives some context if you actually see the film why this is a talking point. But in terms of the actual film, I thought Alden Ehrenreich did a nice job portraying Han Solo. It never felt like he was trying to do an impression of Han Solo, but really did capture the kind of rogue kind of outlaw that Han is. And I think he did a nice job, which there was a lot of concerns because rumors going around that he had to get an acting coach at one point during filming when Lord and Miller were still directing the film. But I think the highlights were him and his relationship with Chewbacca. Chewbacca they actually did stuff with, which was pretty cool in this film. And I know that was a big thing with fans with The Last Jedi, where he just played with porgs.
Yeah, I would say that this would be the first film that I would say in the Star Wars franchise where I really felt like Chewbacca was a true standalone character, who had his own emotions, who had his own trajectory, so to speak, in the film, who had his own opinions without maybe being vocal about it. And I mean, to be honest with you, I really think Donald Glover really stole the show. Childish Gambino, he was fantastic. His acting, he was a perfect candidate for the role. I think he portrayed Lando fantastically. He sounds like Lando would. He uses phrases that Lando would. He really was a great choice of character, and I think he really made the film what it was.
I agree. I think he was probably my favorite of the characters as far as just who represented who the best. Not to say that, the representation of Han was terrible, because I thought it was really good. But I think the job that, what's his name again?
Donald Glover.
Donald Glover. I'm not going to call him Childish Gambino if I said that, but he did an awesome job, honestly, and I think it was almost probably just as good as the original. Who played him? Do you remember the actor's name?
Billy D. Williams.
Billy D. Williams, that's right. So I think he did a really good job. Yeah. And I wanted to add just one thing real quick. I think adding to the Chewie response that you were adding before, I think he felt the most human in this film than any other film. It was weird kind of seeing him, because I'm used to seeing kind of like a bulkier, if you will, Chewie, almost like a guard, kind of stand still. And I felt like he was very human, but in fight scenes he was very agile as well, which was a different
that
level.
Was fun. You actually got to see Chewie do some crazy stuff actually fighting people. But I get what Bobby's saying too, is there's actual moments where outside of anybody else's choices, he made some choices that he had emotional impact with. And basically, I think they're the three main characters that were the most interesting, was Han, Chewie, and Lando. And some of the other characters they're there, and some of them were fun for the time that they were on screen. Some of them didn't get a whole lot of screen time. Some of them did. Woody Harrelson's Tobias Beckett. He's in the film quite a bit, and there's nothing really special about his character, but Woody Harrelson's always great and does his thing. And Emilia Clarke as the, love interest of Han in this film, her character has more interesting things in terms of where her character goes, but in terms of an actual character, she's kind of just there. And she does her thing. I did enjoy Paul Bettany as the villain, who plays this mobster guy, and I don't remember his name. Star Wars names, some of them are a little goofy. But I don't remember his name, but Paul Bettany actually left an impression. He was really good and menacing and had a lot of charisma. But overall, it's and Jon Favreau plays a fun little creature character with a bunch of arms. which that was a fun little thing that he actually popped up in a Star Wars film as an actual actor, seeing as like he's directing a bunch of films for Disney. So that was fun. The story, it bounced around a lot. Like the beginning, it really bounced around, trying to find its footing. But the thing is, this I never felt bored. This never felt slow to me. It had a nice pace for a 2 hour and 15-minute movie. And the best thing I could say, it's like, it's not super deep, but it's fun, and I enjoyed it. And those are like my big thoughts
Yeah,
on
I
it.
agree. I think one of the big things that viewers need to remember about this film, about Han Solo, is that we're taking a look at Han Solo where he really started back, in the very beginning when he's super young and he's not quite that seasoned smuggler that we, have grown to know in Episode 4. That we're really starting to see him at the very beginning of him becoming the Han Solo that we've all grown to love. So I think that throughout the course of wherever franchise is going to take off from, we're really going to see Han Solo as a character grow. So you have to remember we're taking baby steps right now, and I think that that's going to be something to keep in mind going into this film. So,
but yeah, and I enjoyed the music in it. It wasn't John Williams, some composer named John Powell doing some John Williams stuff.
Another John, close enough.
Yeah.
But like they do a nice job of integrating some of the older themes, but also creating some new ones. I actually did really enjoy the music in this movie, and I know that was in particular when Rogue One came out. That was a concern, was that like the music wasn't really memorable, which with Star Wars it should be, and that's like a big thing.
Yeah.
And the issues with Rogue One was that they had to fire the composer and have another composer do it in 3 weeks. So at least this one, they had somebody lined up, and they apparently reshot 75% of this film that was already shot by Lord and Miller when Ron Howard took over. And honestly, this never once felt like a movie that you can tell there's a lot of redone stuff in it. Like Rogue One, I felt that, and you can tell was a bit choppy, but I felt like this film felt like one cohesive, fun, jaunting story.
absolutely.
Any other thoughts, guys?
You know what? Let's give it a score.
Alrighty.
Let's talk about it. What's the bottom line here?
So, I don't know if we're all going to do grades, but usually I do grades. I'm going to give Solo, a Star Wars story, a solid B.
I'm going to agree with you, Shane. That's the exact score I was going to give it. I felt that when you put it up against, crux films like the episodes, it doesn't really stand in the same category, but as a Star Wars film, entertainment-wise, I thought it was very good. I don't think that it was cracking my top 3 or even 5 spots movie-wise, but I did think it was very entertaining. I would definitely go see it. I would give it a solid B as well.
I'd probably say a B as well. I mean, not really original, but, like
Hey,
I said,
we're consistent. Just like this movie.
That's it.
So, thank you guys for joining us with our special little review here. Thank you, Michael. Thank you, Bobby, for joining
Thanks
me.
for having me,
And
Thank you.
keep checking out the Wasteland Reviewer.